Hello students. Now in this part of the video we will talk about the HTML events. So now you visit many websites, and on the website or web pages sometimes you click on the element, sometimes you right click on the element, sometimes you move your mouse over some element, sometimes you maximize your browser window or restore window or submit some form. So all these things that are happening on the web page are called events. Okay, just to show you an example here that we have one form here. So the moment you click in this text box, so this clicking is an event associated with this text box. So the moment I click, I can write something in this text box. For example, number 1, I type 6 and 6 is displayed here. Okay, similarly, to enter some information in this text box, again I have to go for a click event. When I click here, then I have the option to type something here. So let's say I type here 9, and then again I will go for click event on this button, and I have done programming in such a way that when I click on this button, then the values from these two text boxes are taken, these values are added, and the result is displayed on the web page. So I'm going for a click event on this add button, and I get the result on the web page. Okay, so just like we have a click event, we can have a, you notice there is a mouse over event, and when I move my mouse over this button, you can notice that there is a change in the background color of the button. Okay, so this is default programming, you don't have to do anything. This is the default programming, but we can change this. If you remember, in the CSS we learned this, how to change the background of some element when the mouse moves over it or when you click over it. So you can do that, right? Okay. Similarly, if I right click, for example, on this page, if I right click, I will get some options to go back to the previous page or refresh this page or save this page or print this page. So the event was right click, and the page responded by giving me various options that I can do with this page. Okay, so its web page is all about the various events and how the web page responds to it. So HTML events are things that happen to HTML elements. Things means like clicking, double clicking, right clicking, dragging, moving a mouse over, okay, on a specific HTML element. So a thing or event is always linked to some HTML element. Okay, clicking on a button is different from clicking on a web page. Now, when JavaScript is used in HTML pages, JavaScript can react to these events. Okay, so in the HTML you learned how to make these HTML controls, text boxes, right, and button, right? But it is JavaScript which is adding this programming capability or ability to take some action when you click on this button, right? So when I click on this button, click event, it is JavaScript which is reading these two numbers and finding their sum and then displaying on the web page. Okay, so JavaScript working with HTML. So the various examples of, as I already discussed, the various examples of HTML events, we will just mention some of the events here, like when the user clicks the mouse on some HTML element, or when the page has loaded. This is also event. So sometimes you get a greeting message when you open a page. When the page is fully loaded, after that you get a message like good morning or welcome to the website or things like that. Okay, and when an image has been loaded, when the mouse moves over some element, this I just discussed here. So you can see here we have button. When the mouse moves over the button, you can see the background color changes. Okay, so we can do this type of programming. We can add our own functionality, what to do when some event happens. When an input field is changed, so we can do programming that when we type something here, so that means some change is happening in the text box. Before it is empty, when I type A, So A is typed, right? So we can, like for example, we can have an this typing event. When you type some character, JavaScript can change it to uppercase, okay, or check whether it is a character or a number or things like that. And when an HTML form is submitted. So when you submit the form, see, generally in most websites, whenever you fill some form and when you submit the form, before the data is sent to the server, generally the JavaScript will do the validation. That means making sure that the user by mistake has not entered any invalid value. Okay, JavaScript can check for invalid values, but JavaScript cannot check for incorrect values. For example, if you are entering mobile number of Oman, it can check that the mobile number has 8 digits and nothing else is typed. But it cannot check whether this mobile number that you're giving is your mobile number or somebody else's mobile number. Okay, so for that we have different methods. Let's discuss one event, which is on click event. That means when you click on some HTML elements. So the on click event occurs when the user clicks on an element. So this example I gave you, like when you enter two numbers in the text box, and then when you click, or this is on click event, when you click, it is called on click event, right? And then the JavaScript adds these two numbers and displays the result. Now the syntax for the on click event is that in the code you will, whatever HTML element you have, inside this you will mention the name of the event, and then you will call the JavaScript function which will be defined inside your head section. So in the previous videos we learned how to make functions in JavaScript. So here, from here we can make a call to the function. So let me show you one example. Put one small one button here. So input type is equal to button. Name of this button is, let's say, btn1. Now what I want is that when somebody clicks on this button, so you can see the button here, right? And if I want to display some text in this button, I can write here value equal to something like greet me. Okay, so right now in this button I'm clicking here, but I have not associated any JavaScript code with this button, right? So it is not doing anything. Now what I will do here is I'll just come to the next line to write another HTML attribute for the input button, and here I will add the event. So for click, the name of the event is on click. So you can see here when you just type few characters, it gives you a list of various events, and all the events start with on, like on click, on close, on change. Okay, so on double click. So I will choose here on click. Okay, so now what to do here on click? It's better if we just call some JavaScript function. Okay, right now there is no JavaScript function in the head section, right? But let's say we will keep the name of the function as like greet. So now in the head section I will write JavaScript function, and for JavaScript function it has to be inside all JavaScript code has to be inside the script element. So I create script element. Now inside this I make a function, and as we studied in the previous chapters, for creating a function we start with the keyword function and then we give the name of the function. So we decided that we will call it greet, right? So greet, and inside this function I will just, let's say, use the alert method, and I will type greeting. Hello, how are you? Okay, so I save it, and now see this, you can see that this button, okay, we have defined that if you click on this button on click, call this JavaScript function greet. Okay, so when you click on the button, the control will come to this greet function. Inside the function we have an alert method, okay, which will display the greetings. So we will save it here and then we will refresh it, And now in this page, when you click greet me, you can say if this function is called and this hello how are you message is clicked. So HTML button is linked with the function in the JavaScript. Okay, so this was one example. Now we will learn how to use JavaScript and forms. So JavaScript form relies on one or more event handlers such as onClick and onSubmit. Okay, so when you submit the form, at that time you can call a JavaScript function to do some validation, making sure that the user does not enter invalid value, or we can link it with onClick button. So when you click on the button, it can take some action. So these events invoke a JavaScript action when the user does something in the form like clicking a button. So we will discuss this form here. So our objective is to make two text boxes. You enter some numbers in these two text boxes, and when you click on this button, add button, it should add the values of these two numbers and then display the answer on the web page. Okay. So let's start by making this form, and you know how to make the form as you learned in the HTML section. So for making a form, we have to go in the body section. In the body section, I will create a form element. Let me name the form as my form. So we must give names to every HTML element. Inside the form, now I have to make this label and this text box and this label and this text box. So to display the label number 1, I will just write here number 1. It will be displayed as such, or you can use the label tags. And for making a text box, I will use the input tag, and the type will be text. I will give it name as T1. Okay, because text box 1, just a symbolic name. Then I will use BR element to skip 2 lines on the web page, just to keep a gap here. Then I will make the second label number 2, just an instruction to enter the second number. And then again I will make the second text box using the HTML input element, and type equal to text, and I will give it a name as T2, that means text box 2. Okay, and then again I will use BR elements to skip 2 lines on the web page right over here. And then I will create a button or submit button. So input type is equal to, you can use button or you can use submit button in this example. So let me go for like submit button, and I'll give it name, and I'll give it a name of, let's say sum. Okay, and I want to display just means display the result. Okay, so we have a form here. So if you click here, save, and you can see we have a form here. But right now this form, if you click here, if you add 2 numbers here, and then if you click display, it is not doing anything, because with this click event attached to this button, there is no action. In fact, there is no on click event attached to this submit button, right? So what we will do now, in this button we will put an event, on click event, and then we will specify which JavaScript function should be called when you click on the button. So in this button I will add the event, and event is like kind of an attribute in HTML. So click event is called on click. You can see when you say on, you will get some list of events here. So you just choose on click. That means when you click on this button, okay, which is represented here with value display, what to do? So we will simply call a function. So let's say the function name is, add. Okay, and function name always is followed by opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis, right? Okay, but right now there is no function named add in the head section. So let's create a function here. So again, since for creating a JavaScript function, it means it's a JavaScript code. So for writing a JavaScript code, we have to create a script element, and inside this you can write your JavaScript code. So now we have to create a function add. So for making a function, we start with keyword function, then we give the name of the function, then we put curly braces, we make a block of the function, and in this function we will write the code to read the two values from these two text boxes and then display the answer on the page. Okay, now to read the value from the first text box, let me create one JavaScript variable a, and now I want to store in this variable the value that you type inside this text box. So if you put here value, let's say 5, then when you click the display button, the first thing it should do is read the value from the text box t1, okay, and put in the variable a. Now how to access the value inside this text box? For this we have to follow a path. So we'll start from the web page, because this form is inside the web page. Then inside the form we have a text box, then inside text box we have the value. So let's start from the web page, and in JavaScript web page is referred to as document. Okay, so you go to document. Now inside the document you have a form, right? So what is the name of this form? If you see here, form, name of the form is my form. So in the web page, okay, dot, then you specify the name of the form, my form, then dot, and then to refer to the text box, okay, you specify name of this text box, right? So which is t1. Okay, so now you have reached the text box t1. So now you have to read the value that the user has typed in the text box. So for this we have a property called value. Okay, so you can go in the reverse way for understanding that in this line, okay, you read the value, okay, which is 5, from the text box whose name is t1, okay, and this text box is inside the form whose name is my form. So name of this form is my form, and this my form is inside the web page, and web page in JavaScript we call it like document. So whatever value typed by the user, that will be stored in the variable a. Okay, whatever name you want to give, a or whatever. Okay, same thing we will do for the second value which the user types in this text box t2. Okay, so for this also, let's say we make a variable b equal to, now to get the value we will go to the web page. So web page means document, then go to the form, form is my form, and then go to the second text box, its name is t2. So you reach the second text box, and then to read the value in the text box you use the property value. So after these two lines, the value of first text box is stored in A and the value of second text box is stored in B. But always remember that in the JavaScript, okay, in the HTML form, whenever you read a value from text box, it is always treated as a string. But ideally we should convert these values into a number. Okay, so if we want to allow, so what we will do now, we will change this value like a equal to, we will typecast this value, okay, because by default 5 is coming as a string, but we want it as a number. So we will use a JavaScript function called parse float. Now remember here, parse, f is capital, okay, JavaScript is case sensitive, please don't use small f here. Parse float, and whatever value you received here, a, will put the value of a variable here. So in this function gets the value of a which we received from the form, then it converts it into a floating point number, a real number, and then reassigns it to the variable a. Okay, same thing we can do for b. Okay, so parse float b. So whatever value you received here from the second text box, using this function parse float, we convert it into a number and then we reassign this value to b. Okay. So now we have values of a and b, and our next job is to find the sum of these two numbers. So I will just use here new variable, let's say sum equal to a plus b. So these two numbers are added, and then using a document dot write function, or if you want to use alert, you can use alert, whatever is the requirement, and then we will display the message here. I will just use br so that message is displayed in the next line, and then I will put a message sum is, okay, after double quotes I will put the string concatenation symbol plus, and then I will put the name of the variable which is storing this sum, and that is sum, right? So this is your program which is handling the form. Okay, so we enter two values in the form, and then when you click, JavaScript receives those values and adds them and displays the answer. So let me refresh the, okay, we have saved this page. Let me refresh this page. Okay, so the page is not working. That means we have some mistake here. So let's check our mistake here. Okay, we didn't close the script tag. Okay, the closing tag has to be slash. So this was the mistake we made. Let's see if everything is okay now. So we okay, so refresh, and now in the first number, in the first text box, let me add 5.5, and the second text box, let me add 5, and when I click display, it should add these two numbers. So 5 plus 5.5 is 10.5. So let me click here, display, and you can say sum is 10.5. So this is how JavaScript can read the values from the HTML forms, okay, and it can handle the form data and work on it. Okay, thank you very much.